Everybody, welcome to TraderMerlin Show. It's your Thursday afternoon edition. Oh, the fun stuff we'll talk about today. I'm going to do a slightly different show. Normally, we'll cover some market-specific topic, but today I think it warranted a little bit of a different discussion, which was this ongoing war against crypto, which I've hinted at and talked a little bit about over the past couple weeks. But you think about our liberties and freedoms that we have in America, which it even says it in the national anthem, the land of the free, the home of the brave. And you would think that these elected officials are working in our best interest, that they're doing what should be done for the betterment of us as the citizens, not for themselves, their campaign, or their pockets. And today's discussion revolves around not just this one individual. She's just, I think, so far off her rocker to make it as public as she did today. But there's other elected officials out there that we certainly need to bring to light that are going after some of our liberties and some of our freedoms. Now, of course, we could go into all of these different topics, and it doesn't really matter to me what your stance is on, all these different issues, gun control or abortion, all that stuff. That's your own personal preference, and we all have our different ways that we look at these things and we make our stance and we formulate our opinions about maybe other people based off their judgments and those things. Well, one of the ones that I think for us that's going to definitely impact us is something that might impact our monetary system and the ways that we transact and the way that we do send money, etc. So I came up with a crazy one, which was this graphic right here, the war on crypto. Now, unfortunately, the AI that generated this picture painted Elizabeth Warren in a much prettier light. It did a wonderful job, except the mouth. She's really screaming and angry here. I'll show you the other ones that were my candidates to be the choice for today's show. There was that one. I had this one. It's just a little different way to write it with all the soldiers going crazy. That one was more like she's laughing at the war on crypto. And then this one here, which is like they're doing a presentation about Bitcoin in the back with the war on crypto going on. So for those of you who might not know what on earth I'm talking about, I will show you what she posted on her Twitter feed actually last night. Oh, I'll make sure I get the right one up here. And I'll read the whole thing to you just so the podcasters can hear this as well. So this is from her Twitter feed. It says, "I am in this fight to put our government on the side of working families. Join our re-election campaign today." And as you can see scrolling through on her graphic, it says, Elizabeth Warren is building an anti-crypto army. As an over-the-counter hearing aids for available, hearing aids, all right, what I find. Elizabeth Warren proposes $10 a day for childcare. So one could make the argument that $10 a day for childcare, okay, that's fine. That would help the average person. One would probably agree that going into things like hearing aids for certain people that really need those devices, okay, fine. I might see that as a viable option as well. But when we look at the final one there, which says, and this is from her campaign, she's endorsing and supporting this posted ad here. It says, Elizabeth Warren is building an anti-crypto army. It's not saying she's going after bad actors. It's not saying she's going after the Ponzi schemes like Dogecoin or Shiba Inu or Hexcoin. It's not saying she's going after the people that have caused us undeniable pain in this industry. Sam Bankman-Fried, I just forgot his name, but the guy that was from Terra Luna, right? These guys, undeniable pain in the industry, stole billions of dollars. So to make a blanket statement that you're going to go after everything to do with crypto, not only is anti-American, in my opinion, just shows that outright stupidity on that individual. Like it's really just stupidity. Because her title right there, right at the beginning of it, it says, "I'm in this fight to put our government on the side of working families." Now, this just shows the ignorance of Elizabeth Warren, because if you read the white paper about why Bitcoin was created, it was due to the fact that we could not trust our banking system. It's written on page 1 of the white paper. There you go. Thanks, Liz. Do Kwon. My brain is so full of stuff, plus the construction going on over here is driving me crazy. But if you look at the white paper itself, Satoshi Nakamoto wrote that because the banking system was challenged. It had problems. It was faulty. And I would agree that today we still have those same problems. I mean, look at what happened to our banking system over the last 3 weeks. It's been absolutely insane, the amount of money they're now pumping back into these banks to save these people who, some might have been doing criminal activities, who cares? Protect us from them. Protect us from these leechful banks that are just designed to make them their CEOs even more money and their shareholders. What about the average American? The average American ended up getting screwed in the deal. They say we're not going to pay more taxes, but we probably will at some point get that can kicked down to us because certainly these banks are now going to be required to pay more money into the FDIC insurance fund, and you know damn well that that's going to come from our pockets, not the banks. So this fight to say I'm on the side of the working families is just stupid. I wonder whether she's just so uneducated in the world of crypto, or if there is in fact another agenda here. So to me, it feels like there's an agenda. Now, am I saying that we should have laissez-faire with cryptocurrency? Absolutely not. There needs to be regulation. But to go and try to go after an entire industry just shows ignorance, because there's great projects, and maybe Elizabeth Warren is getting backing by some of these banks. You could tell by some of the decisions recently. It would appear that the banks are somewhat on her side as well. So let's go back to maybe the challenges of crypto and kind of the main things that have put us in this position where we're at. You have bad actors like Do Kwon, right, who is in jail now and hopefully will do some time. You have people like Sam Bankman-Fried, which, he stole a bunch of money, still claims to be innocent. And I think a lot of those people deserve to go to jail. And with this uprising of a new asset class, which we saw in the dot-com bubble, I mean, that's one of my first time I really saw this was a new, I don't know if I necessarily call the internet bubble an asset class, but a new investment type, a new hype for the day. That was the dot-com. And when that happened, there were so many fraudulent pieces that came up, right? So much garbage came up through that. They weren't even crypto companies, but they were just trying to be money grabs. You're going to have that every time there's a new technology. So I'm okay with the regulation saying, let's be careful and make sure that the average American doesn't get burned. But for any elected official, and again, I'm picking on Elizabeth Warren because she was dumb enough to say, I'm assembling an anti-crypto army. Good luck winning your campaign. Right now, you're going to have a lot of money thrown against you just because of that stance, regardless of all of your other things that you stand for. It's kind of crazy. Is crypto to replace banks from Nick Sleeth? So this is the initial intent of Bitcoin was to be your own bank. It's not saying replace a bank, right? We should always have that choice, especially, here in America, we think we have the most freedom in the world. I would argue we don't. I would say that because of the regulatory environment, because of our politicians and things that they do, we don't have the most freedom in the world. For example, if you want to trade crypto here in the US, you get no leverage and you get very little instruments. If I go outside and go to Binance.com, I get 100 to 1, 200 to 1, 300 to 1 leverage, which should be the user's discretion. You should choose the amount of risk you want to take in these markets. Plus, I can trade thousands of more different cryptocurrencies. But our government limits it to this small little select piece. Says this is safe for you. Well, we should be the ones determining what is safe for us and what is not. Anyway, it's not designed to replace the bank. It's basically saying that you can be your own bank. So the banks will always be there, right? We do need the banks. They're a necessary evil. But I look at it as this way. I want to keep a lot of my money in my control where the bank can't seize it, right? I've got my little nano ledger here, right? With you guys have seen that and the account I have on here. I've got a lot of money on here that the government can't take away from me. They can't devalue my currency or Bitcoin. They can't take it away from me. I don't have to worry about there being a run on my wallet. My crypto's not there. It's real money. It's tangible. I control every aspect of it. Whereas all of us, everybody here, that has their money in the bank, it's not yours. At this point, it's the assets of the bank. You just have a receipt tape that says this is what they owe you. So it's not designed to replace the bank. It's saying become your own bank. That was really what Bitcoin did. Now, to NJ's point here, he says most cryptos are a joke. I would 100% agree with you. I would say that probably 80 to 90% of all of the crypto projects have no legs, they're trash, and they'll disappear. And I would argue the same thing for the dot-com companies back in the late 90s. Right? 80% of those companies disappeared. That said, there were some that came out of that and became the juggernauts that rule the world today. Now, Apple didn't start in the late 90s. However, Amazon did. Right? Amazon got $600 million worth of funding in 2020. In 2000. If they didn't get that funding, because the markets tanked like a week later, if they didn't get that funding, Amazon wouldn't be there today. So you have all of these companies that were around in the dot-com bubble. Many of them got eaten up and consolidated into other companies. But what came out of this stuff? You have obviously Amazon is the big one, but you look at companies like Facebook, which started earlier, started a little bit later than that, but still, that's the tech company, .com. It uses that same basic technology, internet, that a lot of people were laughing about and saying, it's not worth it, it's useless. So what Jenny Yellen, what Elizabeth Warren did today is basically, imagine going back to the late 1800s when that first car rolls out. She's that elected official that's going, We are anti-vehicle. Whatever that four-wheel thing is, I am against that 100% because it's sputtering and it makes a bunch of noise. Well, don't get mad at it because it sputters and makes a bunch of noise. Understand the value of that transportation vehicle and say, okay, that has potential. Maybe there's problems with the technology that's powering it. Maybe we need to come up with a different fuel source. Maybe we can work together to make that vehicle more quiet and get the vehicles we have today where, damn it, you can't even hear a Tesla coming around the corner because it's like whispering. So, you know, I just feel like this is just a crazy shot across the bow. And then not to say that I'm anti-crypto, but to say I'm assembling an anti-crypto army. That means that she's putting people in place in different entities, whether that's on Capitol Hill or through businesses, to help fight this. Now, I'm an advocate for crypto because I think crypto represents freedom. I think crypto represents choice. I think crypto represents an alternative to this oppressive regime of traditional finance, where it's all about fees. It's all about keeping your assets under management, lending that money out, and making those banks richer. One of my favorite parts about crypto is taking that crypto that I have and earning yield on it for myself and basically cutting out the middleman, which was the bank. Right? A bank will take your money. Sorry, I'm on a rant today and I have enough. I know no cocktails or nothing, but I should have a glass of whiskey. That bank takes your money and essentially lends it out to somebody else and keeps the difference. And that's how banks make their money. Well, why can't we do that? There are decentralized marketplaces where you can go to and through crypto assets and lend out your money to somebody else and you keep that difference, right? So instead of the bank paying you 0.1% interest, as I'm getting paid on my savings account, it's actually 0.01 of my savings at Chase, ridiculous. 0.01% interest and lending it out for 7%, I can do that whole process myself and keep 6.09 or 6.99% rate of return for myself by lending it out, right? So let's replace these banks. Let's find out that being a necessary evil. Chase Bank saving rate is 0.01. Yeah, 0.01. Yeah, I know. I just looked at it. I was shocked that it was that low. Now, from other perspectives of what's going after this market, if you look at Elizabeth Warren, I'm willing to bet you that there is heavy pressure from Elizabeth Warren and whoever her team is on the SEC, because of course the SEC is now going after all of these exchanges and literally machine gunning lawsuits at anybody to do with crypto. Not only that, she has put pressure on the FDIC because the FDIC in the sale of Signature Bank basically said you have to discontinue all of your business with crypto banks if you buy Signature Bank. Crazy that they can dictate that. And again, freedom of choice goes out the window. At some point, we will have to have a system that isn't so dictated by a few politicians, or hopefully get these politicians more educated. At this point, I think Elizabeth Warren is using this as a soapbox, believing and hoping that a lot of Americans will stand behind her. I actually think this might be that piece that backfires on Elizabeth Warren. So I mean, I hate to do it, but I mean, you know who's going to get the Donkey of the Day award. It might even be the Donkey of the Week. You are such a jackass that you publicly posted, I am assembling or building an anti-crypto army. Mind-boggling to me that someone would be that blunt and that stupid, knowing how the younger generation, who is starting to go out there and vote more and more and more, is using cryptocurrency and digital assets. Now, I don't have the opportunity to vote because I'm not in Massachusetts, but I can guarantee you, with every penny that I have, I would be voting against Elizabeth Warren, even if I agreed with her on some other topics that she might be grandstanding on or her platform. Because of that comment right there shows me that you are not a politician that has America's best interests at heart. You have some other agenda, whether that's banking or some controlling interest. But if you really were an American and you really wanted to support American people and families, as you say in your statement here on your Twitter feed, then what you would be doing is you would say, I am going after the bad crypto, and I'd like to see how we can bring cryptocurrency and digital assets to mainstream to support the American families and give them a choice against these uncertain and deceptive banking practices we have going on in our world. I need a cocktail. All right, sorry, that was a bit of a rant. My apologies. I know this is a total off-topic show and very different, but you know, you're witnessing something that is, I think it's going to start to polarize not only political parties, but again, start to have issues with the people of the United States. Now, I think most people aren't anti-crypto, like get rid of it. If you're smart, you're not going to be just anti 100%. Let's understand this asset class and what can it bring to the table, right? What might it do for me? Don't just think something's terrible because you heard about it being terrible and Jim Cramer says, I'd sell Bitcoin. Great. Ever since Jim Cramer said he'd sell his Bitcoin, it's up over 100%. So keep saying you hate it. Love it. Good, Alan. Got your Nano X. Yep, keep those keys, man. Keep those keys. Let me scroll back here because I've just been on talking and not even looking at the comments. So Naum says, what liberties and freedom? You can't go to any federal park without paying for it. Financial capital is freedom and liberty. Yeah, the country has definitely changed. And I would say that, one of the things there, Naum, is yes, you have to pay to go to national parks, but at least the national parks are keeping it somewhat clean, doing the rules, not allowing somebody to just move into the park and live there forever, rent-free. I'm okay to pay money to go into a national park. I'm all right with that. There's other things I think are just outright stupid that we're doing with our money, but I try not to make this a political show, but this is a political attack on an asset class that not only do I think we can trade and make money off of, but represents a fundamental shift in the way that we do business as a global community. Now, I did see something here. Lisa's Merlin's getting us riled up. I'm getting myself riled up. When I saw this tweet today, I was just so blown away by it. Is crypto replaced banks? Already got to that one. Watch out. Yeah, I know. I'm sure. Look, I'm so insignificant. Elizabeth Warren doesn't care who I am. Bitcoin will be around a long time after Elizabeth Warren. Correct. It'll be around much longer, and I will hold some. Look, this is just. Again, I think it's just difficult because she's polarized herself so much. This will probably come back and backfire on her. I think there's far more people in the U.S. that are at least supportive of Bitcoin, and to say that you're going after, all of crypto, boy, she might have just killed her career right there. Isn't an American to want to see the replacement of the sovereign currency by a global one? Well, I think I'm not saying, GD, it's a good point. I'm not saying we need to get rid of the dollar. Right? Keep the dollar. But I should have a choice, right? If I want to hold a currency long term, I should have a choice of where I can hold that currency. Now, if I hold the euro, if I hold the yen, if I hold the dollar, Canadian, Australian, or New Zealand, or Canadian dollar, those currencies go down over time. They're mechanically built to go down over time because of printing and dilution. Why can't I have the choice to say, I don't want to put it in that US dollar that's depreciating 97% since 1913, let me put that in something that might appreciate. And you're wondering, well, why would Bitcoin appreciate? It'll appreciate because you cannot print anymore. There will only be 21 million of them. So now you have a fixed amount of supply. And we all know that that's not the case with the US dollar. The US dollar has infinite supply, as we saw what happened in 2020 to 2022. Actually, just in a 1 month window, they increased $14 trillion. That's 3 times more than all of the money that was in circulation at that moment in time in the world. US dollars, by the way, in the world. So I'm not saying replace it. Just give us the choice. Now, there was a question that came through a couple days ago asking, could I do a show on what would happen if the US dollar was replaced? And, part of the reason why you're probably seeing Bitcoin have this nice surge is that talk track about the US dollar losing its reserve currency status is starting to grow louder and louder and louder. You heard China and Russia talking about needing an alternative. Now you got Iran and other countries going, hey, we'll join in this with a different currency. We don't know what currency that will be right now. However, Bitcoin is certainly a candidate, although China and Russia, if they're going to be the kingpins of this new currency, they're going to want to manipulate and control it. So going forward, Bitcoin might be a safer place than holding US dollars. Because imagine, you guys tell me, what do you think would happen if all of a sudden our global trading partners, China, Russia, Brazil, other countries around the world all say, you know what, we're going to go to a different currency other than the US dollar as the reserve currency of the world. Type in the chat what you think would happen if we lose reserve currency status. More importantly, what would happen to the value of the US dollar if we lose reserve currency status? That's one of the main reasons why I believe you're seeing Bitcoin rally. Because what could happen to the US dollar could get pretty ugly, right? I'm actually stalling for time so you guys can type in a chat here. Let's see, 1929 all over again. I would say maybe even worse, Tom, because if the world stops holding, countries need to hold US dollars. Hey, John, countries need to hold US dollars. So you want to buy goods and services, you use dollars, so there's always going to be US dollars in the coffers of China, of Russia, Japan, the UK. They're all holding dollars. If all of a sudden they don't need to hold those dollars because let's say oil is now priced in, I'm making this up, but let's say it's priced in Bitcoin. What are central banks going to need to hold now? They're not going to need to hold dollars anymore because dollars not priced in, or oil's not priced in dollars. It's going to be priced in, let's say, Bitcoin. If that's the case, they're going to start holding Bitcoin, and that will surge in value. Now, let's say it's the yuan, right? Just making it up because I know I don't want to make this all about Bitcoin. If you use the Chinese yuan, that's going to be the one that all the banks need to hold. So they'll be dumping dollars. They'll just be get rid of their dollars. They don't need it anymore. They won't be buying our bonds. They won't be buying the treasuries. So it would be a major systemic collapse for a while. Now, I don't know how bad that one would be, but I think it would be really, really, really bad. And to GD's point here, he says World War III. I don't want to think about that, but when you lose that kind of power, you go down swinging, and maybe that is what happens. I really hope not. But U.S. enjoying the U.S. reserve privilege. Yep, exactly. And Rajesh, that's what central banks have done for a long time, is they just print money and print money and print money and print money, ultimately making all fiat currencies worthless at some point in time. Would there be inflation? I want to say yes. I'm trying to process that one in my head, peasants. That's a tough one. Yes, I think that there would be hyperinflation because what you'd have is all of these dollars and nobody, because typically when you print more money, when you increase the money supply, and it's the same, more money chasing the same amount of goods and services, that drives prices up. In this case, you'd have the same amount of money, but nobody wants the money. So I don't know whether that would actually drop the demand for it and the price of the dollar would just fall dramatically. I think it would cause a good degree of hyperinflation because what would happen is that gallon of milk, which cost me $5, let's say 6 months ago, because nobody wants these, they're falling in value, I might need to take $100 to buy that same gallon of milk because the value is just falling out of that dollar. So yes, it could create a hyperinflation, as Tom mentioned there, going back to, the Weimar Republic, right? The 1941, 1945, so I forgot the year, 1945, I think you're right with 1945. It could create a whole lot of problems there. And again, this is all hypothesis at this point, but we are hearing that the dollar is losing its reserve currency status. So there's nothing to back the note. There's nothing to back the dollar. There's nothing to back the pound. There's nothing to back the yen. There's nothing to back Bitcoin. Let that one sink in, right? There's nothing to back them. Now, even on your currency, it says backed by the full faith of the U.S. government. And I don't have a lot of faith, especially when I see the grandstanding and idiocracy that's going on. I mean, just the statement made by Elizabeth Warren today just blows my mind that you can be that ignorant to the need for an alternative payment system and payment network. Yes, the dollar would plummet, Jeff. The dollar would plummet, but I was just trying to think of what the impact on inflation would be. It would take, because the value of your dollar would, let's say you had a dollar, it's only worth like 10 cents now. You have to use $10 to buy that same gallon of milk. So yeah, it could create serious problems. But we're talking down the road, right? This is not something that's going to happen in the next couple days, not in the next couple months. In the next few years, are we talking 3 to 5 years out that all of a sudden China and Russia and these other countries start using alternative currency? I hate to say it, it's definitely got some good probability to it, right? If this was Mythbusters and you were going on there saying, what's the probability of this happening? Well, it's definitely plausible. So it could certainly happen. I think there'd be a lot of conflict between now and then. Think about where we are in the U.S. Oliver, you got the bourbon out already? They really do not know what they say. I hope, me? France has signed a non-USD contract with China for nat gas. I'm not sure. I didn't see that one, VB. Maybe. That would be pretty ballsy of France to do that, right? Because obviously they're one of our main partners, and to do a non-dollar contract would kind of freak the U.S. out a little bit and make some bad blood. However, got to do what you got to do. Anyway, man, we could go on and on about this one. It's interesting to think about how all those dominoes might start falling and create a whole different market environment for us, and a new world. So anyway, I had to bring this one up here. This the war on crypto there. That's a laughing face. I actually like this one. This one here looks meaner. It's more violent, which I think is the stance that she's going for. So I will, in the next couple months or next couple weeks. I meant to do it today, but again, I'm running ragged trying to do too many things here. I'm going to post a couple links that will help you identify which one of your elected officials are voting certain ways on different issues. I know that Coinbase right now is putting together a database that you can see what your elected officials' stance are on digital assets and cryptocurrencies. Now, I understand that for most of us here, digital assets and cryptocurrencies isn't your number one issue from a political perspective. Totally get that. And it's not mine either. But it is one in the top that I'm very interested in. So, as I look to vote next year, as that election comes around, again, I go through there with a highlighter and I'll mark out who's voting on what. Right? What's your thought on this? Are you going to support this? Are you going to support that? Are you going to go against this, against that? And ultimately, I look at it this way. I'm going to be voting and picking the lesser of the evils. I really don't think there is a perfect candidate. I think they're never going to agree fully with what I want to do unless I actually run for office, which is never going to happen. I would never want to have that job. Anyway, I'll let you know. I'll post that link. Probably, I'll see if I can get to it tomorrow if I remember today to post some of these links. Let's see, Steve. If USD loses reserve status, if the banking system fails, as many predict, assuming Bitcoin prevails, wouldn't this mean our whole society and economy crash, no longer produce power, Bitcoin needs internet? Well, you're going to the extreme, Steve. It's not saying that the entire economy is going to shut down and we go back to the Stone Ages and you and me are like rubbing rocks together to try to start a fire. That's not going to happen, right? It just means we'll be in a much more difficult place as an economy. It'll be harder to do business. Maybe international business is going to suffer as well until those businesses adopt that new reserve currency. So it's not going to go to the point where we have no electricity and no power. That will not happen. What will happen is, again, there'll be struggles for our economy. It'll take a big ding for a while until we get back on track and accommodate this new reserve currency. But worry about that bridge when we get there. Don't freak out about it now. What it will do is it will give value to things like Bitcoin. Because imagine this. I'll tell you right now, this is what my plan is. If I hear, and this discussion of the U.S. losing its reserve currency status becomes more and more significant, I will be doing everything in my power to move all my assets out of dollar-denominated assets and into something else. So Bitcoin or some crypto could very well be where I end up parking a lot of that. But let's say, for example, and I'm just making this up, that the Japanese yen becomes the reserve currency. I know that's not going to happen. I'm just using it as an example, so don't send the hate mail right now. Now, let's say it becomes the Japanese yen, hypothetically. I would be moving almost all my assets into the Japanese yen. So if I could find ways to buy Japanese yen denominated assets, maybe that ends up meaning buying real estate in Japan or something that's backed is in yen, like the currency pair, right? This is where Forex becomes great because now I can go short USD JPY, which means I'm selling my dollars, I'm buying yen. And as that yen starts to surge, I make money off of it. It's saying where is the logical flow of money going to happen? And if we look here, go out to the chart. Since you guys are staring at me for way too long, I noticed I got one of the lowest viewerships we've had in a long time. It's because I'm not showing charts. I'll get myself off the screen. But let's just say you look here is USD JPY, right? USD JPY was rocking for the longest time because the US dollar was raising interest rates. Japan was not. Therefore, we had this carry trade. Right now, you're looking at the US dollar been getting noticeably weaker. Keep your eyes on this level right here against the USD JPY. For the podcaster, that's 107 or 127.50. We seem to be getting weaker. That almost looks like a head and shoulders pattern. I said almost. It's not a head and shoulders pattern. It kind of looks like it. But it's showing you that interest is falling out of that US dollar. Now, if the Japanese yen were to become the reserve currency, this line, it would look something like this. Especially if they made that announcement, it would look like this. Straight down. Which means the dollar is just losing tons of value and the yen would be going up in value. Yes, I'm just using it as an example, Oliver. Oliver, you tell me whichever country you think would be the one to get the reserve currency status. Buy real estate there. Even if their economy even if the housing market there is suffering. And the reason for that is, when you go to the reserve currency status, and let's shift it to the yuan. Let's say it's China, right? Their housing market isn't doing great either. But if all of a sudden the world now has to buy yuan to trade oil or gold or silver, right? Imagine if gold was priced in yuan. Well, now what does the U.S. have to do? U.S. government has to hold a huge reserve of yuan. So does Russia. So does England. So does the euro. So they're going to buy the hell out of the yuan, which drives up that price. So even if the housing market stays exactly the same in China, and let's say you buy a house for 1 million yuan, and the housing market doesn't move at all, but the yuan doubles in value, your property has doubled in value, right? Let's say that the yuan doubles in value and the housing market moves up because more people are moving to China, and all of a sudden your house goes from 1 million to 2 million, you've now quadrupled your money. So you're using the real estate market there in that local economy as well as the currency appreciation. But again, this will not happen overnight. It's going to take a while to get there. So sorry, we went on some real big tangents here today. I know it wasn't the trading show that you're used to, but it is stuff to think about. It will be a very interesting evolution, not just with the war on crypto, but also with the global currency war. Let's see, Skilled Stocksman. When does the war on futures and the greatest tax benefit of futures start? Well, I don't think there'll be the tax benefits there, but I don't think it'll be a war on futures. But that's another asset class that you could use. The only issue there is if you let's say you went long Japanese yen because you thought it was going to be the reserve currency. You're still priced in US dollars, so you would be losing some of your gains to the fact you were holding a dollar-denominated futures contract, even though the futures contract was pricing out yen. Let's see. Evil is evil no matter how small. Correct. Agreed. You'd hear first. Diamond hands on the yen. No diamond hands on the yen. Yes. Rajesh, did I not say that? I didn't say this is happening tomorrow. I don't know if it'll take decades. I think 10 years is highly plausible that this could change. You've been hearing grumblings for the last couple of years. It would not surprise me to see currently that some governments are already starting to work towards that, and they'll move slowly in that direction and at some point pull the switch. But decades? Nah. 10 years? 10 years max, I think. If it's going to happen, it's going to be the next 10 years. Okay, let me scroll back up here. I'm going to, sorry if I miss any questions here. If you can pay with Bitcoin, you don't need fiat currencies. Correct, Doc. And that's kind of why I'm such an advocate for Bitcoin, right? If I can use Bitcoin to pay for my whatever asset class that I need, it's just going to adjust to that currency. So if I have Bitcoin and I need to buy oil, oh, it's priced in dollars currently? Cool, I'll pay with my Bitcoin, right? Oh, it's priced in yen? Okay, great, I'll pay with my Bitcoin. You can always find a way to convert your Bitcoin into that local currency. There's a lot of apps out there that do it automatically. If you look at Strike Technologies, that's using the Lightning Network on Bitcoin, they've actually set it up where whoever receives it can say, I want it converted to this. So let's say I've got a Bitcoin, I'm using Strike, and I want to buy 50,000 barrels of oil. Well, instead of using that US dollar, I can send it to whomever is the buyer, and the buyer can say, I want it in yen. Great. I want it in pounds. Great. It'll convert automatically within the app itself. It's pretty cool. I anticipate the Swedish krona to become world fiat reserve currency. I hope so. I do love Sweden, except the late night pickled herring on the streets was something that really kind of drove me nuts. It was kind of weird. All right. Yep. 3 days. Skilled. I thought it was 2 days. All right, let me run through our markets here now that I've vented and got that one out. I will definitely let you guys know the links. I know Coinbase has one. I thought it was called Crypto 435, but I couldn't find that one. I looked earlier today, and then I got distracted. So here is our top 7. Bitcoin taking a little bit of a beating today, but I don't know if you guys were watching it last night. It had a huge surge. And thank you, barchart.com. If you guys follow Barchart, they put up some good stuff. The guy's always posting some great content. Right as this move happened, I'll bring up a 5-minute chart for you. It was really funny. This move happened last night, and right here, when that happened, that price surge above 29,000 on Bitcoin, barchart.com posted, oh, here goes Bitcoin, 30,000 next, and literally the second you hit the send button, it came right back down. I'm like, dude, you jinxed it. Bitcoin had a great night last night and then kind of flattened out today, giving back some of those gains. There you go. So still looking good. We did break the top. Again, that yellow box is there for a reason. What I'm looking for is a close above that upper yellow box. Until we get a close, I still think you're just going to channel sideways and really not do much. All right, index-wise, Russell 2000. Nothing really to say here. You can see the consolidation on today. You had somewhat of a topping tail. One of my buddies asked, would I call that a shooting star? I'm like, you guys tell me. Would you call this candle today on the Russell a shooting star? Yes or no? You look at that price action right there, and it was up most of the day, came back near the end and kind of dropped near the session lows, and it was after a small uptrend here. So we had the hammer started this thing, which we talked about on Friday the 24th. I would contend, and I would say, yes, I do like this as a shooting star formation. How would we trade it? Well, we'll look out there and go right to the lows of today, which the low of that candle was 1773, and for some reason it's not snapping. It should snap to it, but 1773. is the number I'm looking for. Let's see. What do we got? Who says wrong place? Oh, you're talking about that. Yeah. Well, it should be at a new high. That would be good. But it is after a run, right? So it is after this little run right here, which isn't great. But I would actually look to trade it. And again, different strokes for different folks. It is by itself, but typically I'd want it after a bigger run. But it has been a decent run, and it's up to this upper range. You know, you look at this upper line I'm about to draw here. Let's drag this one down. I mean, look where the tail hit today. It hit 1800 on the dot. Your high intraday was 1802. So it hit 1800 on the futures contract, sold off near the lows. So it looks to me like momentum is just getting a little bit weaker there. So great. You know, keep your eye on the Russell. If we break down below 1773 tomorrow, awesome. Go for it as a potential short. What did Lisa say? Looks like a shooting star, but wrong location. Should be higher up. I agree with that. I think it'd be better, Lisa. We're basically grading things, right? It's kind of like saying, we'll use a very sexist example here, Lisa. Let's say, you know, you've got a selection of men in front of you, and you can grade them from, wow, that one's nice, but, you know, there's always something wrong. And you finally get to the one at the end, or one of them, and you're like, man, this is the perfect man right here. Well, is that the perfect shooting star? Absolutely not. Is it in the perfect location? Absolutely not. Will it work? Possibly, right? What does the shooting star tell us? Shooting star tells us that price had been trending in a direction, which it has done. I'll give you the exact measurements here. I know, my horrible analogy, Lisa. My bad. 5.8% right here in 4 trading sessions. Actually, looks like 5 trading sessions. That's pretty good. I mean, over 1% a day. Well, it peaked out. At one point, it was a big green candle up into supply and ended near the lows. So, you know, would I rather see this move of 10, 20, 30% up before I see a shooting star? Yeah. But this still could work. You could see tomorrow it break down below this, and keep your eye on that one. We'll revisit that on the Friday show when I actually have a glass of whiskey, and then we can celebrate then. There you go. No candle is perfect. That's right. No candle is perfect. No politician's perfect. We all have room to improve. So Robert says basing, and you're right. You're right basing right here. You've got this big sideways action for the past, month. However, I'm just saying, on that smaller time frame, you do have a nice little move that had up. Would I like it better if it shot all the way up to 1900? Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, just throwing that out there. I think Tom mentioned something about a range here. Needs a longer upper shadow. To be better, sure, John, right? And again, this goes back to no candle's perfect. In a perfect world, what would that candle look like? It'd be after a much bigger up move. It'd have a small little red body at the dead low, right at the bottom of that thing with a long topping tail. That's the one where you're like, let's do this. Looks great. And always going to be like that, right? So this is definitely one that I'm not saying, hey, load the boat tomorrow, but or even tonight if it breaks down here, but it does present the possibility for opportunity with this one. Does he identify as a man? Oh boy, GD. Here we go. Let me keep moving up here. Here's your Dow, which is actually showing real strength. Now, one of the reasons I really like what's going on with the Dow right now is you kind of expect it to stall. Either stall at the 32.8 or stall at 33. Not only do we not stall at those previous highs, which you tipped on twice, back on March 9th and on March 22nd, but now you've got to close above it. So the Dow futures look poised and ready to run. Looks to me like they're probably going to want to challenge the next pivot high, which is right around 33,400 on the Dow. So you got legs to run here. So all bearish on the Russell, bullish on the Dow. You're like, wait a minute, you can't have contradictory opinions about indexes. Yes, I can. So last one here is your S&P 500. An even better looking chart, no candles per se that are noteworthy. However, you're right near the upper end of that yellow box that we drew. And that top of that yellow box, the high point of it, goes back to the high on March 6th. And that high was 4,082. Today, closed it at 4,080. Our high intraday was 4,087. So we did breach the high, but we have not closed above it. It looks like the S&P wants to keep on running here. So most likely, if it doesn't turn around from right here, we'll most likely head higher and head towards that 4150 mark on the S&P. NASDAQ, your victor. It's actually officially above that yellow box we had drawn on there. I can finally get rid of that damn thing. So the yellow box is gone. I can get rid of some of these other lines, which I don't need them anymore. We'll move those, get those out of the way. So here we are right now. I actually have this red line at 13,094, which if you break down this zone all the way back to 26th of August, that's the very beginning of that supply zone. So you have one little supply zone ahead of us on this NASDAQ, and I'll draw the top. I'll just put a yellow box. Why not? Let's do a yellow box. I haven't done yellow box today. And so we are right in that zone right now. Now after that, you're looking at 13,700 is your next target. So quite a bit of a run from there, another 700 points. So looking good so far. And let's see, I got gold, 1.57%. We're still within this pattern here. I'm hoping that it breaks out so I can delete it, because I'll be honest, I don't like this chart formation. I feel like this is just an amateur drawing. This is like a 4-year-old with crayons that drew this picture, but it was more of an education lesson. I'm definitely not a fan of this setup right now. Ultimately, you look at what's going on here with gold. I talked about that 2,000 mark, which we rallied right back up to today. But look at the highs from back here on the 20th of March, right? That'll be your next logical stopping point, and the high there was 20,014. So let me just drop this down a hair here. It's not lining up right. 2014. So that'll be the next stopping point if we get a close above 2,000 for gold. And lastly, crude oil ripping up 1.92% today. It's actually coming right into a basing area as well, which would put us right about here. Come on. Which is about 75.63 to 76.62 on crude oil. So at this point, I expect crude oil to continue on, which is good because I'm long energy, I'm long crude oil, and we'll see if that one makes it to that point. Last couple pieces here, talking about the dollar index. Again, one of the reasons you're seeing nice up moves in these markets is just been drifting lower and lower. We talked about this a couple weeks back, where logical target becomes this previous area down below, which was an area of demand going all the way back to May of 2022. We broke that with one step back in February this year. I think you're going to come back and revisit that one at 101 and change. If we get down below that one, we'll have to reevaluate and have a totally different conversation there. But it could get ugly if this USD continues to break down. Ugly for the dollar, bullish for the markets if that does happen. So lots of conflicting signs out there. You want to SPY? Get away from the futures and look at the ETF. So this right here is already at supply. And again, this is a question that I don't really have a good answer for you, Lisa, is like, which one's more powerful? Which one has more weight? Is it going to be the futures market or the actual ETF? I've heard so many conflicting opinions on that one. I personally would go with the ETF. And the reason is more people see the ETF. Futures are speculation on the future, exactly what they're named. You have a pattern here, which according to Steve Nissen, who wrote the book on candlesticks, this is called a hanging man. Now, a hanging man right into a supply zone. Generally, a hanging man, they say, is a reversal pattern. I disagree. I actually really disagree that this is a reversal pattern. The thought is that I actually don't even know what his logic is on why this would be a reversal. In my mind, it's a continuation pattern. Why? Because you sold off and then it rallied back up and closed at the high. So it had some weakness, but the buyers were still there, still continuing to push this thing higher, therefore closing at the dead high. So I actually think a hanging man formation, as you see here on the S&P, is a continuation. But the textbooks, the candlestick books will actually tell you this is a reversal pattern. So you got to make your own decisions there. Steve says, you miss your chance to use a whiskey metaphor when you discuss grading shooting stars. Pappy Van Winkle versus Old Crow. Both are bourbons. Pappy Van Winkle, I gotta say, is like the most overpriced whiskey on the planet, and it's decent. I'd rather have a bottle of Blanton's. I'd rather have a bottle of Michter's, man. Give me a nice little Michter's. Delicious. I agree, Robert. Bullish up, but hey, the textbooks say what they want to say. Other than that, not much to discuss here. Let's go back to the yields real quick so I can wrap up the show. Here's your 10-year. So not a lot of action in that 10-year for the past couple of days. There was a lot of action in the inversion of these yield curves, but now we're just kind of settling down a little bit. Here's your 10 and the 2. So you're still about 50 basis point inversion in that 10 versus the 2. So ultimately, to get this market back on track, we need this thing back above that 0 line. Not quite getting there. VB says silver. Do you want the futures? Or wait, well, there's two. There's Silvergate, which is SI, or do you want actual silver? So I'm pretty sure you want... I'm pretty sure you want Silvergate Capital. I mean, I wouldn't touch this thing. So here's your Silvergate, which is now you're back to trading again. I'm not a fan of this one. I wouldn't touch it. It's just real high risk gambling stuff. So for me, I'm not going to touch that one, VB. Could it rally? Absolutely. I just don't feel comfortable. I mean, if you have some gamble money and you have a grand or two, you want to just throw at it and say, if I lose it, I lose it, then go for it. Okay, that's what I thought. How you meant silver. So I'm just going to do SLV for that one. Silver's been looking great. I sold puts at the $21 strike, which is awesome. I will collect my money tomorrow. Basically gave me over 1% for the week because of the volatility in these marketplaces. But silver's looking great. I do expect it to stop as it gets near that 22.50. So you are currently sitting right at 21.94. Momentum looks great. Again, uncertainty for global markets means commodities tend to do rather well, specifically gold and silver. So I'm actually expecting this to jump up here to 22.50. Does it get there tomorrow? Don't know. I actually hope that it sells off. I really do, so I can sell some more puts and gain some more premium on this, because I do want to own some silver long, but mine was taken away from me last Friday with my call option. So there we go. Last one, JP Morgan. Yeah, I saw that one today. My 32 average price here, so I'm still down, although I did collect a bunch of premium. I got collected 2 months worth of premium, or two premium chunks I contributed to my dollar cost average. But from a technical perspective, NJ, it doesn't look good, right? I am bullish long term. I think that it'll start to rally back up here, but right now it's just not looking good. And again, that's just because of all the pressure going on in the banking sector. You had down day of 0.3%. I don't expect to see big swings in this one. I expected to see it kind of stabilize here and then start to slowly work its way back up. But I don't see anything on this chart that screams at me and says, hey, this thing's really tradable. Jump on it right away. You got to trade it. Just don't see it on JP Morgan yet. I was looking at WSM. Or is it WS? Yeah, WSM. Same thing, Williams-Sonoma. I mean, you could call that a hammer formation, but really this is just consolidation, right? It's just traversing sideways. So, what I do in situations like this, Eric, is I will just draw a box above the most recent highs, most recent lows, and just do this and say, I don't care what happens. I'm not going to touch it until it either moves up or down out of that range. It just makes it much easier. You can go on whatever platform you have and set alerts and say, all right, if it gets above 124, alert me. If it gets below 116, alert me. And just don't do anything until then, right? There's no point. This thing is just flatlined and there's no real opportunity. You want something that's moving and has a better trend. And Schwab, SCHW, yeah. Schwab has been looking real weak. I'm fortunate for the options trade that I made. It wasn't executed, so fine with that. As far as the current trajectory, it almost looks like a descending triangle. Right? It looks like a descending triangle on that one. For those that don't know what that means, it means that your tops are getting lower, meaning there's selling pressure, and at the bottom, which I'll move this line up here, you're kind of staying right around the same bottom here. So it looks like it's getting weaker and weaker right now, which if it does and continues to sell off, I will probably look to sell some puts on this one, because long term, I'm okay holding Charles Schwab as a long-term investor. I don't think it'll be a run on Charles Schwab. Again, I mentioned the fact that 80% of their depositors are protected by FDIC, so there won't be a run on that bank like there was on Silvergate or Silicon Valley Bank. All right, I'm going to wrap things up. I didn't bring up an economic calendar. I didn't have time today to bring all that stuff up, but I will show the calendar for tomorrow. So we did have our GDP number come out today. It was a little bit lower than expected. They thought it was going to be 2.7%, came out 2.6%. So that will not be good for the Fed. I still am of the opinion that at the May 3rd FOMC meeting, we will see a 25 basis point increase. I know, it seems crazy, but I'm going with 25 basis points. Maybe I'll do a survey tomorrow. I'll pre-type it in so don't waste your time with me typing and talking at the same time. And then for tomorrow, here's your economic calendar for tomorrow. There are some big announcements, and one of them is major, by the way. That is your core PCE price index. So last night in our class that I was teaching at my house, we looked at commodity prices, right? Looking at things like corn and wheat and cotton and soybeans, and seeing, a lot of those have had pretty significant declines. That has certainly had an impact on the inflation numbers, but we all know that the Fed has been eyeballing and saying that this is their most important metric. Okay, fine. If you look at this, they're expecting it to drop to 0.4% month over month. So 0.4% month over month brings you to under 6% inflation. Right, 0.5 would be 6%, so 0.4 is going to be slightly under that. So that's the expectation. That'll be your biggest announcement for tomorrow, and that's going to happen 1 hour before the markets open. But you also have a plethora of FOMC members speaking at all times of the day. It's going to be kind of weird. You even have some aftermarket close. So tomorrow night, Weller will be speaking at 2:45 p.m. Pacific time. Member Cook will be speaking. At noon, Williams will be speaking. And then ECB Lagarde will be speaking at 8 a.m. So expect some volatility tomorrow based off what is said at these different announcements. Lagarde has been very critical of cryptocurrencies and digital assets recently, so we'll see if that comes through, and maybe even some talk about this chatter about reserve currency change. We'll see what her thoughts are. It'll probably be more about inflation and interest rates and systemic risk because of the banking sector, but that could all have an impact on our markets going forward. Okay, my rant's done. Thank you, Elizabeth Warren, for allowing me to use you as a soapbox due to your colossal stupidity, and for allowing me to have a donkey of the day. It's not often I get to do a donkey of the day, like my sound effects, like the graphics, and donkey of the day, Elizabeth Warren, for saying I'm creating an army, an anti-crypto army. Anyway, have a wonderful day, everybody. You guys have questions, comments, feedback, let me know. Send them in at TraderMerlin@gmail.com. You can put your comments down below any of the YouTube videos as well. I will get to all those. I didn't get a chance to look at them today, so Friday's show will probably be mostly answering listener questions. You got something you want answered, send it on in. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.